Hello, we're here in the heart of where Dalgety Teas are made, and we're here with the main man himself, Mark Dalgety. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. Tell me a bit about yourself, Mark.
Well, in a nutshell, the way I could explain myself is that I was born in London. My parents sent me to Guyana when I was about 1 year old because they were students in the United Kingdom. My mom was studying sociology and my dad was an industrial chemist. And I pretty much grew up most of my life in Guyana until I was about 20 years old. Growing up in Guyana, in my earlier years, I was very much into agriculture. I had my little farm and my little,
Okay.
what do you call it, your bed at the back of your yard.
Ooh.
And then somewhere along the line, when I was doing my sixth form, I became an industrialist and I wanted to do chemistry and get involved with industry. So then I came back to London and I studied a degree in chemical engineer. And then I went back to Guyana again when I was completed studying. And somewhere along the line, I built up the concept in terms of getting into tea. And that was pretty much in the concept what I've been doing.
You built up a concept of doing teas, as you said. What made you actually want to manufacture teas, build upon that idea? What made you want to get to where you are today?
Well, it's a combination of things. I would say when I started in the first case, the first thing that drove me to start teas is that I actually was broke. And one of the products that someone came and asked me for was a Cerisi, or in Ghana we call it Karaila tea bush. And based on the risk factor involved, what I'd actually done, I had £1,000 on my credit card. I went down to Guyana and basically bought and packaged about £1,000 of the Cerisi Karaila tea bush, which I sat in my parents' living room and cut into 16,000 1 ounce packets.
Wow.
Bought it to the UK and sold it for 50 pence each, earned about £8,000 over a 3 months period or so. I mean, at first it was mainly a means to an end, but then once I was on the road doing the sales, then I began to have an insight into the herbal tea market, and then realized that what the Europeans were calling herbal teas was pretty much what in the Caribbean we call bush tea. And if you know, in the Caribbean, bush tea is normally considered the tea for the rural, less privileged people, whereby in the UK the herbal teas was suddenly that is the tea for the more privileged tea people.
So it's a luxury.
So exactly. So I felt that, I mean, when I analyzed the market, the herbal tea market in the UK, what I found a lot of it was using flavorings and to make their teas, and most of the flavors were also European flavors. So I thought it would have been a good concept to introduce some Caribbean flavored herbal teas to the European market. So pretty much that is, I mean, I realized that there was a business opportunity there, and that is basically where the concept started from.
You invested £1,000, I would say, at a risk, wasn't it? Really,
Yes,
it was at a
of
risk.
course, yes.
How have you got to where you are today? From I know you said that you were selling and you got to £8,000 over a period of
2-3 months.
2-3 months.
Yeah.
But now obviously it's grown.
Yes.
What are the steps?
Well, the steps, first of all, is that the first thing is to identify that you've got a product that you feel is a unique product, or what you call have a unique selling point. Our selling point was that, I mean, we realized that, as I said, the Europeans were making herbal teas, but it was always of European flavors. In the Caribbean, we have herbal teas, which we call bush teas. Funny enough, most of it is normally just the bush people normally take, put it into hot water and boil it and then strain it. What I basically did is looked at the concept of taking these same bush teas and put them into a tea bag version. The way the market was built was just using what I call common sense principles anyhow. Is first of all, you realized who was your targeted audience or your targeted consumers. And I mean, I work on a principle you call the root of least resistance. The root of least resistance is that the targeted consumers that you were looking at, that is actually the Caribbean community, because they would at least first of all recognize the product or the tea that you were going to sell. So what I did is analyze and look where the Caribbean community was situated all over the UK in every city. And I mean, that is basically done by simply going to the library, going to the consensus book, and you begin to identify where various pockets of Caribbean people live in the UK. And the second part of it was to use the yellow pages again in the library and literally go to the sections that had supermarkets, groceries, health food shops, and take it pretty much photocopied all those sheets and just went on the road and stopped at each one of those shops and presented your product with the opportunity of hoping to get the sale. I mean, it's normally a hard slug, but I mean, it's all to do with numbers. The higher number of retail shops that you target is a higher chance that you're going to succeed in getting at least one sale. So that is how the concept was built. Is doing exactly that, starting off going by shop to shop, right? And I mean, you know, if you hit 40 shops a day, something I say is every 5 to 10 shops you probably get one order. Over a period of time, you'll find that, I mean, once a product is selling, I mean, if a guy is selling your tea and his next door competitor doesn't stock it, he might have told you no before, but then when he sees the guy next to him selling it, after a few months when he sees you delivering into that shop, then he decides that obviously it's something that he needs to stock too. Yeah, but I mean, that was the basis of our, and we only targeted small independent retail shops. Also from a cash flow point of view, we only target small independent retail shops that could pay you on delivery.
That must have been quite hard. What would you say were the hardest moments for you?
Well, each stage is normally a difficult stage. I mean, but once you've passed that stage, then there's always another difficult stage, right? I mean, each one becomes a challenge. A lot of times you got to be either driven by the passion that you got for what you're doing, with a determination to succeed. Yeah, because I mean, the stages involved where the first thing was just even finding where the retail shops were, finding where the communities in the UK was. Once you begin to capture that market, you say, okay, I'm targeting the independent retail market. Once we capture the independent retail markets, like I basically mapped the whole of UK into different sections. So for instance, I targeted all the independent retail shops in the North Circular to start with. Once I succeeded in the North Circular, then I started looking further afield. So then I started moving things into Luton, moving things into Birmingham, moving things into Manchester, moving things into Liverpool. Once we captured all those areas, we focused on all, and that was just independent retail shops, right? Once we covered that, then okay, that target was achieved. Then the next thing now was to convince the multiple supermarkets such as Sainsbury's, Tesco and Asda that this is a product line that they should be listing because it's one of the strongest brands within the independent retail market. So that in itself becomes another challenge because, like for instance, when you first approach the buyers, they obviously didn't buy into this herbal teas from the Caribbean. Then I mean you had to go through stages whereby, for instance, I started what I would say is canvassing or you know, managers in various Tesco's supermarkets, asking them if they knew of the product and if they would endorse it. So even in the situation of getting into the multiples, what I had basically done is targeted about 15 Tesco supermarkets, spoke to the managers, they were happy with the product and felt that it's something that they would love to actually have in their shop, and convince them now to speak to the buyer about getting the product listed.
Okay. You say you were a one-man show. How has it changed? What kind of things were you doing as a one-man show? And what, you know, where are you today?
Well,
what are the changes?
As a one-man show, the first thing is that, I mean, you would have been the one and only salesperson on the road doing your product line, okay? You would have been selling then. I was at home packaging a lot of tea myself. Then eventually I started having people come home to help me package the teas. Then from getting people to come home, they were always paid not even per hour, but they were paid according to how many packages of teas they helped me to package. Then from that stage, then you started working towards actually having your own factory operation where you employed. So I mean, in the early days, I mean, now, I mean, I've got a factory that probably has, I mean, we have about 20 people working with us here. We've got over 100 and something farmers across the Caribbean that suppliers that depend on us to sell our products because that they look after their family by us selling our products. You end up building a network, you know, in from that one-man band scenario, so when you get into the factory now, I mean, in the early days, for instance, I used to be in the mornings, I'd be on the tea bag machine operating. In the afternoons, I'm doing sales. Eventually, when you start teaching people what exactly the standards you're looking for, you begin to spend more time not being on the production line, but spending more time back again on sales, you know. And as each technology is developed in the company, I would probably spend a bit of time working on the production line according to the appropriate technology that I would have brought in until I taught somebody how to do it, and then I move off again. And I mean, now, for instance, I mean, the business has developed where I literally actually have a production manager, I've got production supervisors, we've got even a general manager that manages the company that, I mean, I could be not in the factory for weeks, but I know exactly what's going on.
So it's really, really expanded now from the one-man show in his front room
to
what you are today, which is obviously a great achievement, isn't it, really? I mean, do you recognise it as an achievement?
The thing about achievements is that, I mean, normally when you are working towards an achievement, well, you don't think of it as an achievement, even when you've succeeded in it, because by that time, you would have focused your mind on another greater aspect of what you're trying to attain. So, I mean, I don't know if probably when I become 50, I'll probably look back and think, well, you know, and I'm really sitting down and could consider myself retired, I might be able to consider, well, it was an achievement, you know. But right now, there's still a lot of things that has to get done. And so, as much as we've made steps in various stages, you know, you don't want to say, okay, you haven't made an achievement, but then at the same time, because there's so many other things you still want to do, you know, you just see it as you have made another step or have just completed this part of the project. It's just part of the process.
What are the difficulties that you've encountered over the years?
Okay, difficulties. Well, there's always various difficulties that occur within one's travel as an entrepreneur or as a business. I mean, I'll probably go through it and I pinpoint a few.
Okay.
I mean, I could remember even just starting the business. Once I'd been very successful in my first £1,000 turnover, and I had a big idea of doing this, putting this Cerasee tea bush into the tea bags. And you know, I organized with my associates in Guyana that I wanted another £1,000. By this time now, I'm in the UK, you know, trying to do the sales. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, just the concept of the fact that I wanted over 1 ton or 2 tons of this Cerasee tea bush just kind of like blew their mind. They couldn't understand what could I be. I had to be making a mistake. So I went along with obviously the money I earned from this 8,000. Made all these cartoons, developed certain contacts to purchase it. I had a dummy cartoon. I was walking around with trying to get orders, right? And then when I said to them to ship, they only had about 50 kilos because they thought it was a mistake I had. So suddenly, right, I had all these cartoons that I spent now ready to go to market and no product to put in it.
Oh my God.
All because they just couldn't conceptualize the village. That was the first basic channels. Then, I mean, even on the second note now, I thought, okay, I'll try and do all the tea bag in Guyana, near to the farmers in the market. Send down machinery. And within a few months, they broke it up. So people stole some parts. They probably wasn't sure what it's for, but just in case it probably might give them some pocket money. So that was a setback in itself, you know. We've had situations in terms of contamination in the early days. I can remember when we launched our lemongrass tea. I mean, eventually we had to work very closely with farmers to make them understand quality control. I literally had to go out there into farms and I had my coordinator in Guyana sitting on farmers, showing them how to design drying houses and every single thing, invest in getting them to put the right drying houses in place and all these various things in order to get the quality product that we were doing. Because the thing about it is that the product that we were doing is an unconventional product, and it's not necessarily like rice or sugar cane or, you know, some other normal cash crops that people are accustomed to farming. So, you know, challenges occur in, you know, even you started doing sales. I mean, the concept is just there you arriving in a shop. The guy's never heard about your brand, never heard of your tea, probably never heard the name of the tea, and you've got to convince him that this is something that he needs to stop because it's going to sell. Now that is a big challenge in itself, because you starting from not even ground zero. Ground zero is actually a bonus. You starting from below the ground because you have to convince this guy of buying something that he's never heard of, a name that he's never heard of. So each stage it's been a challenge, and I mean, as I said, even, you know, as we conquer each one of these stages, you know, it's the same thing. I mean, as you know, we export products. We went into Nigeria, we went to Ghana, South Africa, we've been to Zimbabwe, we've been into the Americas. You know, various challenges occur as you conquer those markets. I mean, difficulties again. The biggest difficulty, my recent biggest difficulty, I would say, was commodity prices were increasing at a tremendous rate over the last 3-4 years. Came up with this concept that we're going to go back again into the Caribbean to try and set up a factory. End up setting a big factory up, 10,000 square foot in Jamaica. I mean, the Jamaican government was absolutely superb in facilitating us setting up the factory in Jamaica. We had the factory all started. The setback in that is that, I mean, I literally, in desperation, well, I don't know if it's desperation, but because things are moving reasonably smooth, employed the first 10 persons that came and knocked on the door. And 8 of them were absolutely rotten apples, and they broke up everything in the factory, and we only last for 2 years. We had to close the whole factory down. Lots of money lost, put the company in all kinds of stuff. So at each stage, you know, I mean, well, you learn from it also. I mean, I actually eventually, when I came back to London and started rebuilding, is that I just went on a course to understand how I should employ people. Because over the years, I mean, I've always employed people based on word of mouth. You know, I need somebody, someone says they know some person, and I mean, a lot of things that people always say they could do various things, and quite a substantial amount of them, they say they could do things, but normally they think they can do it, but they actually can't. You know, or, you know, they see someone doing something and they feel that it's something that they could do. And I mean, if you're not very diligent with that, I mean, which I think I wasn't always, I would just take, if someone came along and said, well, you know, I know to fix a car, and I mean, I've done it before, I wouldn't necessarily ask them to send all the references. I would say, well, if he says he can do it, I'll give him a chance. And then many a times, at least a substantial amount of them, you know, they don't really know to do it very well. You know, but I mean, when you want to start building, I mean, like now who we building the company, is that we, you know, taking all of that into serious consideration when we employ people, because what we want to build now is a proper foundation and legacy on the long run. You know, so this is a different angle of the turn that the business is now going into.
Retrospectively, what would you say were the main characteristics that a person should have to start up and run a business and make it successful once they've got the vision and they've researched, as you say, and they've seen that it's a marketable area? What would you say were the main characteristics a person should have to ensure that it's successful and they're able to deal with some of the difficulties that arise?
There's a few words that come to mind immediately. I mean, the first one I would say is that you've got to be focused. You got to be focused, because what happens is that when you start on a vision that you might have in terms of a product or whatever service you think you might be, most things are not very easy, right? And what happens is that as you embark on this process, right, there's always other things that look a lot more attractive and very interesting. And if you're not focused, right, what happens is that you eventually start jumping from project to project and you never get anything done. So one of the first things you got to be is focused. If you realize, okay, I want to be the team man. I want to be the best team man in the world, right? First of all, I want to be the best team man from the Caribbean. I want the best team man in the UK. I want the best team man in America. But I'm focused on that. I mean, we do other product lines, but we always focus on our tea. And in keeping focused that way helps towards being successful. Because then what happens, it helps you to overcome a lot of the challenges that you will embark in the journey, right? The next thing you got to be is determined. Determination is absolutely important, because what happens is that when the challenges come along, right, that determination makes you realize that you're not going to take no for an answer. You're not going to become unsuccessful. And that determination drives you to making sure that that project is successful. Then, I mean, so we talk about focus, we talk about being determined. Then I think another good thing is to be passionate. Whatever you do, it's good to be passionate about it. It helps. Also, again, these sort of things actually help when the big blocks come tumbling down. Right? All the negative things that come in. You are so focused, you don't even noticing them. You just know that I have to get to the tip. I've got to win the game. And those are 3 aspects I would say it's important disciplines as an entrepreneur if you want to succeed in any discipline or business that you want to go for.
And what have you got lined up for the future? The future for yourself and future for the company?
Right, the future for myself. I think one of the best concepts over the years I began to realize as you move from entrepreneurism to being a business person is that I want to begin to have money working for me and not me working for money. You know, the one of the most successful business people and entrepreneurs, and that is exactly what occurs. You know, so I'm building a concept within the business where the business is generating the financial rewards without me necessarily being with a hammer every day, hammering away on the nail. Yeah. You know, we here, our endeavors is to make Dalgety Teas a global brand. I mean, we're wanted to be the Liptons, just similar to Lipton or Twinings or any one of those brands. Yeah. And that is what we're driven by, you know, to create a global brand. And also to encourage people from the Caribbean that, I mean, the Caribbean is not necessarily all about just, you know, beaches and sand and so forth. We have numerous commodities there. I mean, one of the concepts of Dalgety anyhow is really looking for commodities in the Caribbean that we feel has got a global reach and developing to take it to global markets. That's pretty much what we're very much into. So we will be continuing that strive, to do those things. And I mean, as I said, I mean, it's not teas, just teas. We do Dalgety extra hot pepper sauce. We do Dalgety noni juice. There's other non-tea lines that we actually do that we're developing slowly in the back end, and that's what we intend to continue doing as we build the brand to a global level.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard about the other things outside of Dalgety Teas, and hopefully this will sort of bring it on the table and people will sort of venture out and actually go buy the product. Yes. And obviously Dalgety now, well, at least for me, is a name that I recognise. You know, it's not just because I know you or I've heard of you or I've met you. I've heard of Dalgety Teas. I've seen it in the supermarket. So I think, you know, you're doing well. Okay, you know, it is a household name.
You have to remember
in most houses.
Well, that's good. You got to remember that you're the person or the people that help us to be successful by purchasing and supporting the brand, and you know that is what is important. And to recognize the Caribbean brand and support it, and not just go and buy any old product that you see.
I agree.
And we thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank the audience.
Ginger tea. That's the one that does it for me. Nice, but you know, Dalgety for me is recognised. You know, I can. A lot of my friends know about Dalgety Tea, and hopefully, like you say, it does become global, and it does reach the areas that people probably thought it wouldn't reach. Yeah. So hats off to you.
Thank you very much.
And good luck.
Thank you.
For your future endeavours, and you know, who knows where it's going to go.
Exactly.
And maybe you will retire at 50, as I said.
Anything is potential.